Hello, friends. Pastor Amy here from Southgate United Methodist Church. I have a confession to make. I, for a long time, thought that the Psalms were boring. They felt repetitive. I'd read one verse and think, well, they just said the same thing twice, right in a row there. But it wasn't until I learned a little bit about Hebrew poetry that my attitude started to change. Unlike much of the poetry used to today, ancient Hebrew poetry usually doesn't rhyme sounds. Instead, it rhymes ideas. One line will echo and expand on or deepen the line right before it. And the repetition isn't because the author ran out of things to say. If you've read the Bible, you know there's plenty of things that they say. But the reason for the repetition is it's there because they're inviting us to linger, to notice, to let the words sink more deeply into our hearts. And once I began reading the Psalms that way, aware of the purpose of a repetition, I started hearing them a little more differently. During my time away, I began a new spiritual practice of praying the Psalms each day. And I'm still learning. It's still not consistent, but I'm working on it. But I've discovered why generations of Jewish people and later Christians have prayed the same words for thousands of years. The Psalms have been the prayer book of God's people for centuries. They were prayed and sung long before Jesus was born, and Jesus himself knew them. He quoted them, he prayed them. And these psalms, these songs have shaped the worship of God's people for a very, very long time. So this Sunday, we're beginning a 3-week journey through the Psalms together. We'll start with Psalm 17. And in particular, we'll focus on verse 15, where it says, I will see your face in righteousness. I love that because I think it captures something that the Psalms help us do. They teach us to become more aware of God's presence. When we see the face of God, we acknowledge and we're aware of God's presence. So over these coming weeks, we're going to spend some time practicing praise. Praise is a spiritual practice that we don't talk about very often, but praise is more than just simply saying that God is great. That's a good start, but praise is also remembering. It's telling the stories of God's faithfulness. It's naming who God has been throughout history and in our own lives. And as we remember these stories, we begin to notice God's presence with us today. The Psalms remind us that praise doesn't ignore life struggles. In fact, many of the Psalms were written right in the middle of hardship. But they teach us that even there, even in the midst of struggle and hardship, we can remember who God is and become more aware of God's presence that is right there with us in the struggle. So I'd love for you to join us this Sunday as we begin this journey together. Whether you've loved the Psalms your whole life or you've always found them a little confusing or maybe even a little boring like I did, I think you'll discover that these ancient prayers still have something to say to us today. So I hope you'll join us this Sunday at 9:30 in person or online, and I hope to see you there. Take care.